Okay, good afternoon, everyone, from St. Catherine, St. Matthew, and St. Mark. So we will have your first meeting under fourth quarter. So in your fourth quarter, mostly physics tayo. Andyan ba yung mga modules ninyo? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Andyan. Calculator nga nakaala kayo.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for first week for fourth quarter, we have module 1 projectile motion. So here, we have your target. Under learning competency, describe the horizontal and vertical motions of a projectile. Specifically, the activities will enable you to learn how objectives behave as they travel through open air with the action of gravity, describe projectile and explain its features, and solve related problems. So in your grade 7 and grade 8, you have topics regarding horizontal and vertical motions. When we say horizontal and vertical motions, ano yung mga yon? You can answer me. Just raise your hand. Use nyo yung raise hand if you want to recite. What are the vertical and horizontal dimension na or motions na sinasabi? Can you still remember your under horizontal? Sa horizontal, you have your, namely your speed. Can you still remember that? Nakasasaog kawan. Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Oh, malagip yun, J speed. Sino makalagip J speed? What's the formula for speed? You have speed is equal to
Distance over time, ma'am.
okay, very good. Distance over time. You have also your acceleration. For the acceleration, you have velocity over time. Ano pa yung isa? How will you get also your velocity? So for velocity, you have displacement over time. So that is your horizontal motion. Ang mga duck, saan?
Yes, ma'am.
Napigsa ba? Or what? Carry lang. Ano? Andiyan pa ba kayo? O, SS yun. Sensya pakit surat. Speed, acceleration, and velocity. Erase natin. So what are the units for your horizontal? Medyo mo nag-aya. Hindi na. So let's have your horizontal and Horizontal motion. What are the units? So, kapag distance as well as your displacement, ano ang mga units niya? Can you give me one?
Meters per second, ma'am.
Pakilakas, Antis. Yes, Crystal, ano yan?
Ma'am, meters per second.
Ano? Meter?
Meters per second, ma'am.
Meter per second. Okay, so that is under velocity, meter per second squared. So, sa distance, meter. Sa displacement, meter per second. What else? You have kilometer per second, or meters per hour ito. Or dati or kilometer per hour as well as kilometer per hour squared. What else? Mostly, you have centimeter, the same. Remember, this is for length, and for time, you have, what are the units of time? Units of time. Can give me. Ha?
Minutes, ma'am.
Minutes, correct. Very good. So you have minutes. You have also
Seconds.
seconds,
Ma'am, second.
hours,
First.
ano pa? You have also a day,
Day.
a week, o diretso na yun, week,
Month.
year,
Month.
month, quarters,
Month.
wala dyan. So, you have horizontal motion. Na-screenshot na ba?
Yes.
Ma'am,
Okay. Done. Let's clear frame. So, for horizontal motion, when we say horizontal, sa horizontal motion, saan siya banda? X ba siya or Y? In your Cartesian plane? X. So, horizontal is your X. So, while your Y is your
vertical.
vertical
Vertical.
motion. So, yung mga hindi nakakaalam ng Cartesian plane, so that this is an example of your Cartesian plane. This area is your X. That area is your Y. Nagkakaintindihan?
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. So, here, since we're done with your horizontal motion, ibig sabihin, ang kinikater niya is yung parang pa-horizontal. While your vertical, mostly, this is related with your free fall. When we say free fall, nag. So, there is an connection with gravity. So, what will be the units for gravity? Ano ang ng gravity?
Meters per second.
Yung yung content, yung mismong numerical niya. Yung gravity value.
9.8.
Ma'am, meters per second.
Okay, so you have 9.81 or 9.8 meter per second squared.
Seconds
So,
squared.
okay. So, if it is centimeter per second squared, ilan? O, ilan na? Since 9.8, ang gravity, if it is meter per second squared, what will be the gravity if it is centimeter per second squared? Manungay.
980.
Ha?
980, ma'am.
Okay, very good. You have 980 centimeter per second squared. So, if we will have so kapag i-combine mo si horizontal plus si vertical, you will have your projectile motion. SS, bilis. Okay na?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Clear frame tayo. So, under vertical motion, you have your free fall. So, kapag free fall, ang kailangan is your gravity, which has the value of 9.8 meter per second squared or 980 centimeter per second squared. Right. So, kapag walang gravity, may free fall ba? Meron o wala?
Wala, ma'am.
Wala. Kasi, bakit wala?
Ma'am, hindi na siya free fall.
Oo, hindi na siya free fall. Ibig sabihin, it will just float since wala siyang gravity. That is why if you're outer space, kapag nasa universe ka, you will just float since walang gravity. Naintindihan? Naala?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, what are the components for free fall? Ano ang kailangan? So, we have the following components for free fall. Number 1, that is your height. Kailangan ba ng height para mahulog?
Ma'am, yes.
Yes. So, kapag mas mataas yung height, mas mabilis ba or, mas mabilis, malakas ba ang impact or mas mahina? Sa magugugas ka plato ko, di plato ka mabubuong. Doon natin nagmo, di area na di height na di pag-uugasam ka mga 2 meters. Mabuong ba di? Saan? Mabuong. Kasi, mataas yung nangato di pa ka
Height.
tinagan na. Next is your acceleration. Yung kabilis ng pagkahulog. So, dito, papasok si gravity. While your height, sa meter, centimeter siya. Right. So, as well as for the acceleration, we have also your air resistance. Have you tried na mag-saranggola? Na-try yun?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, di saranggola ba bumato no awan iti nabigsa nga angin?
Mamahaan.
Haan. Kailangan mo iti napigsa nga angin. The same with if you are falling, for example, yung isang bagay ay nahuhulog. Kapag malakas yung hangin, mag-i-stay ba siya sa ere habang
Yes, ma'am.
nahuhulog? Yes. Pwedeng mapunta siya sa ibang lugar, hindi na diretso. Right. Next, number 3. You have your velo. You have your
Velocity.
velocity. So, velocity, we have meter per second, as well as centimeter per second. O, yun yung velocity ninyo. Last one is your time. So, what will be the time of arrival ng nahulog na nanggaling sa a certain height? So, that is your vertical dimension. Na-SS na ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next. So we have different formulas for vertical dimension. BD ko na lahat pa vertical dimension. So number 1, if we have your height, kapag height ang nawawala, we have 1/2 acceleration of gravity times t squared. So, itong AG dito, your AG is your acceleration
Gravity.
of gravity. Next. So, if the final velocity is unknown, your formula is square root of 2 acceleration of gravity times height. Next one, we have initial velocity. So you need to have your final velocity. Okay. You have your final velocity plus acceleration of gravity times time. Another one for height. If the given doesn't have any time or acceleration of gravity and it has initial velocity, this will be your formula. So initial velocity times time plus 1/2 acceleration of gravity times time squared. And for final velocity squared, you have initial velocity squared plus 2 times acceleration and height. Okay, SS. Talpasan.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, let's move on. Parang kwan lang to sila review for your vertical and horizontal motion. Since your projectile motion needs these 2 dimensions, your horizontal and vertical, we need to have your basics for horizontal and vertical. So, let's check your pre-test kung yan, sarap tayo na to. Sinong ba? Inalay di ko calculator yung
Mada.
ada. O, kindly answer. Nalpas yung ba answer nun? Ita papel yun. Paampay.
Yes, ma'am.
Nalpasan.
Yes.
Okay. So, let's move on. with projectile motion. Kindly read the jump start. Can do this. Sino mga yan? Namang basa? Yes, Athena. Athena, kindly read the
Yes,
jump
ma'am.
start part.
Have you tried competing with your friends by throwing the fastest stone? Did you win? Is there science behind throwing things? What should you do to get the greatest distance? There is a secret to do this which you can understand as you read along.
Okay, thank you, Athena. So that is your possible example of projectile motion. So under number 1, activity number 1, describing projectile motion. What is this concept about projectile? And answer the following questions that follow. So a projectile is an object with an initial velocity. Kindly check this one, your initial velocity, which then allowed to move under the action of gravity. So if an object doesn't have an initial velocity, do you have any projectile motion? Kung ang object mo walang initial velocity, may projectile motion ba doon? Meron o wala? Ano? Ada ba awan? Naawan sa awan. Ada kayo ba?
Ma'am, awan.
Awan. So kapag walang initial velocity, walang projectile motion. Since sabi dito, with an initial velocity, wala na. So remember, air resistance is present but negligible, as well as it follows a curved path due to gravity and it must have no motive power on its own. So an example is here. So if you have a cannonball or a cannon fired into the air, anong mangyayari? Magi-straight ba siyang pupunta sa ere or magka-curve path siya?
Curve, ma'am.
Curve.
Magka-curve. Since in this area, meron tayong gravity. Ibig sabihin, yung cannonball na pinush ng cannon bababa at bababa because of your gravity. It is possible to have a direct path if gravity is not present. Kapag walang gravity. So this curved path here is your trajectory. Your trajectory, that is the length kung gaano kalayo yung napuntahan ng isang object while in a projectile motion. So your projectile is in this area kung saan niya marireach yung pinaka-top before siya mag-fall. Malala Magagets. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Nakukuha ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So kapag yung bato, gusto mong ipunta sa isang area, if that area is 3 meters, kailangan ba na napigsa at ipinagbatom or nakapsol? Napigsa ba? Di pinagbato, dapat di the object na makadanon di may sa area?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So let's try this one. Projectiles can be any object being thrown in open air as long as it is not blown by the wind. Can be a rock, ball pen, chalk, candy, even your shoes, and others. So letter A, explain why the following are not considered projectiles. A ball resting on the ground. Can answer this. Why is it an example of a projectile motion? For number 1, sino maka-answer? Yes, Mariel.
Ma'am, a ball resting on the ground is not considered projectile because it does not act on gravity.
Okay. Kasi wala naman siyang curved path as stated here. Kung ang bola, kunyari, bola ng basketball, hindi mo naman ginagalaw as well as nandyan lang siya, there's no curved path as well as no motion, then it doesn't have any projectile motion. Very good. Okay, next, number 2. We can answer this one. We can answer a thin piece. Okay, Russell. Russell Nebres. Can you answer number 2? A thin piece of paper not crumpled being thrown. Or is it not an example of projectile motion?
It's not considered projectile since it can be blown by the wind.
It can be blown by the
Wind.
wind. Since it can be blown by the wind. Okay, okay. Alright, so kapag flat naman yung ito throw, makikerry ni wind. Hindi siya pwedeng maging projectile motion since it cannot make any curve path. Number 3, inflated balloon released in the air. Inflated. When we say inflated, anong ibig sabihin? Kapag inflated, sino din nagpa? Yes, Jelly. Jelly Narido. Why is it that it is not an example of projectile motion?
It is not considered projectile because it has erratic motion and goes to different direction.
Because it goes to different direction. Kung madi balloon, while dakal is muna, ang naisigilot. What will happen? Hindi siya magka-curve path, pero it will burst out its air inside the balloon. And next one, a flying airplane. Very good, Jelly, pala. Can answer. Yasmin, can you answer this?
It is not considered projectile because it has a motive power and can counter the pull of gravity.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. A flying airplane, since hindi siya nakakakuha ng curve path. Direct kasi siya. Direct motion. Diretso. Can you answer this one? Letter B. Cite 3 possible examples of projectile I'll give you a minute to answer. So our time is 1:39. I'll check your answer by 1:40.
Ma'am, thrown baseball, kick football, and thrown arrow.
Ano yan? Nasa module nyo. Nasa answer sheet yan, no?
Ma'am, shuttlecock being hit by a rocket.
Okay, very good. So those are example of your projectile motion. Next, for discover part activity 2. Features of projectile motion. Study each concept below to understand projectile motion, then answer the related questions. So number 1, kindly read. Yes, Athena?
The velocity of the projectile has horizontal and vertical components. Where
So that is...
V
Okay. Thank you, Athena. So we have V, your velocity, your Vx, your horizontal component of velocity, and Vy for vertical component of velocity. Ma'am, bakit Vx at Vy? It is related with your Cartesian plane. If you will check this illustration here, the horizontal area is your Vx, while your vertical area is your Vy. So if we will throw a stone, there will be a certain velocity. Is it possible that we have an angle?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes. So if we will check here, your Vx and Vy in this dito sa area na to. Anong angle ito? Your Vy and Vx. Dito.
Right angle.
Right angle, which is 90
Degrees.
So if we will have a projectile motion, possible na we will check your angle. Alam niyo naman kung paano kumuha ng angle, right? So that is why we will use your trigonometric functions, your sine, cosine. Are you familiar with sine, cosine? Trigonometry. Not familiar with this? Okay. That is why kailangan natin ng scientific calculator. Okay? So 1.1, kindly read the horizontal. Yes, Marianne.
The horizontal component of the velocity at a given position can be computed
By? How will you read that? So we have Vx. When we say Vx, horizontal component, your Vo, that is your initial velocity, cos theta. Your theta is your angle. Makikita ba? Ganito ko na lang ano makita yung di board. So we have first formula. So your first formula for projectile motion. Under horizontal, we have Vx equal to Vo or V0 cos theta. Here is your horizontal velocity. Your Vo is your initial velocity while your theta here is your angle. Nakuha ba?
Yes, ma'am.
So, for example, if the given for the initial velocity is 0 meter per second, cos theta, which is 45 degrees, what will be your answer? Paano gamitin ang calculator? Dali. Hanap tayo ng calculate. Stop sharing ko muna. So here, for example, if the example is initial velocity is, if the VO is 0 meter per second squared and your theta is 45 degrees, what will be your Vx? Paano i-compute? So we have 0 cos 45. Your answer is 0. Nakikita ba? Okay. Inusara yung calculator yon.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Alam paano gamitin.
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, so let's move on with your next formula. Kindly read the 1.2 for vertical component. Yes, Athena.
The vertical component of the velocity at a given position can be computed by Vy is equal to V0 sin angle minus gt.
That is Vy, initial velocity sine theta minus gravity times time. Remember yung gravity ninyo is hindi nagbabago. Constant ang gravity. Remember your gravity value is 9.8 meter per second squared, or that is 980 centimeter per second squared. So for velocity under vertical component, Vy is equal to V0, or initial velocity sine theta minus gravity and time. If our example is 0 initial velocity and your time 0 meter per second squared, your time is 5 seconds. Your gravity is constant with 9.8 meter per second squared. What will your Vy? Paki-compute man. Paki-compute.
Huh?
Ito, example dito. So we have 0 sine. Your theta is, ano yung theta na ginamit kanina? That is Ano yung gamit natin na theta kanina, yung angle? You have 45 degrees. So, 45 is equal to 0. So, 0 minus your gravity, which is 9.8 meter per second squared times 5 seconds. Nakukuha ba? Ala-ala? Nakukuha? Ano yung answer?
Negative
9.8
49.
times 5 is equal to 49. 0 minus 49 is equal to negative
Negative
49.
49.
Do we have negative 49 for vertical motion? May negative ba?
Ma'am, wala.
Wala. So, if the answer is negative 49 meter per second squared, magiging positive
49.
49. Nakukuha?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, screenshot. You will try a problem later on para alam nyo gagawin nyo later sa module. Okay, next. Here we have 1.3. Who will read? Sino magre-read sa 1.3? Yes, Marian.
The velocity at a given position can be computed by where VO initial velocity and Vx Vx equals horizontal component of velocity, dy equals vertical component of velocity, v equals velocity at a given position, and O equals angle.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mariel. So here we have your v is equal to square root of vx squared plus vy squared. So kanina, ang nakuha natin is your vx. Ilan yung vx kanina? That is 0, right?
Yes.
0 meter second squared, while your vy is positive 49 meter per second squared. So here, your third formula, v is equal to square root of vx squared plus vy squared. Ilan yung value ng vx kanina? You have 0 meter
Square.
per second and your vy is 40
49.
meter per second squared. So substitution, v is equal to square root of 0 meter per second squared plus 49. Ilan? 0 times 0,
0, ma'am.
0 plus 49 squared is equal to
49 squared is equal to manungay. So, I have 49 times 49.
2,401.
2,401.
2,409. Ay,
We
400.
have
2,400.
2401. So, we have 2,000 for, ilan?
2,401.
2,401.
The square root of 2,401. Manaw.
49, ma'am.
You have 49.
49, ma'am.
Okay. 49. So, your velocity is 49. Yan na yung velocity coming from your Vx and Vy. Alam na kung anong gagawin?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, possible in your quiz kasi, nagbibigay lang ako ng problem. Ganyan yung gagawin ninyo. Pure, kasla math. Nalaka lang. So, example 2.1.1. Kindly read the following. Kindly read the problem. Kung ako ma. Yes, Athena.
A projectile is thrown with an initial velocity of 100 feet at an angle of
Feet per
30
second.
degrees. Above the level ground, calculate the horizontal and vertical components of the velocity when time is 0.
At the initial position. So, given is your initial velocity is 100 feet per second. Angle is 30 degrees. Gravity is 32 feet per second squared. Remember the gravity. Bakit 32 feet, ma'am? Kasi, ang ginamit na unit is feet. Okay? So, your constant gravity will be 32. Nagkakaintindihan? Inayon yun to di pagkitaan nyo ti gravity. So, your time is 0. Kindly check the following in your calculator for horizontal component and vertical. Tama ba yung 86.6 for horizontal as well as for vertical, which is 50? Correct? Correct. Okay. So, if your Vx, your horizontal component is 86.6, as well as your Vy or your vertical component is 50, what will be your velocity? Kindly check if it is 100 feet per second. Tama ba? 86.6 squared plus 50 squared. And get the square root. Naala?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, if we will check here, your velocity is the same with your initial velocity. Why is it not the same? Because your time is 0. Nawatan. So what will be your angle? That is 30. So activity 2.1.1. Kindly answer the following. Kindly read first the problem. Who wants to read? Anybody from the class? Sino magbasa? Wala siya kon. In the above problem, calculate the horizontal and vertical components of the velocity after 1 second. Also compute the velocity at this position. Kindly present me your answer after 5 minutes. Kaya ba? Hello? Kaya ba ng 5 minutes? Or 10?
10, ma'am.
10, ma'am.
10. Okay. I need to check your answers. So you need to open your camera later on. You can start now. You can use your notebook. Ano da pagbasaran nyo? Are we done? Sinang tapos na? Kindly raise your hand. Fundamental. Okay, Roxanne, you're done. Who else? Sino pang tapos? Mariel? Sino pa? Russell? Jasmine Novales? Ina? Sino pa ang tapos? Jelly? What about the others? Okay, let's start. Check your own answer. Check your own answer kung tama. Okay. For number 1, we have the horizontal component. So we have V. Initial velocity cos
30.
theta is equal to 100 feet per second cos
30.
30 degrees. You have 30 feet per second. Next, initial velocity sine theta for vertical motion. 100 feet per second sine 30 degrees minus 32
feet per second.
minus 32 feet per second squared times, ilan yung time?
1 second.
1
Second.
second. So, 100 feet per second sine 30. Ilan?
18.
18.
18.
18 feet per second.
18 feet per second minus 32 feet per second squared. What will be your answer? 18 minus 32, negative.
Negative 14, ma'am.
Negative 14, ma'am.
Negative 14 or 14
14
feet
feet
per
per second.
second. Next frame, we have your velocity. So, v is equal to square root of vx squared plus vy squared. So, your vx is, ano tatayan?
86
30.
points. Ay,
30 feet per second squared plus your Vy is, ano din? 14 ba? 14, right?
Yes, ma'am.
14 feet per second squared. So, 30 squared is equal to 30 times 30, we have
900.
900
900, ma'am.
plus 14 times 14. You have
196, ma'am.
1,
196, ma'am.
196 feet per second. So, 900 plus 196, you have
1,096, ma'am.
1,000.
96%.
Square root of 1,096, you have ilan ang square root niya? Mano, answer tayo.
33.1, ma'am.
33.1 feet per
Second, ma'am.
seconds. Naala ba? Correct yung ba amin? Yes or no? Sinong nakakuha? Kindly raise your hand. Wala. Walang nakakuha. Hello? Hindi nakuha. So, nakaalaawan. Apay nga itawan. Okay, since it is only practice, try na i-perfect yung lahat. So, number 2, who can read the horizontal component? Ay, by the way, na-screenshot yun?
Ma'am, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, yes.
Ma'am Hanpay.
Yes? Hampay, okay. O, yung una. Yung next. Okay, let's move on to this one. Number 2. The horizontal component of the velocity is constant at any given position. This means that it moves at the same speed along the horizontal, thus it does not accelerate in this direction. So here in your figure 2.2.1, different positions of the projectile in the trajectory and the orientation of the horizontal component of the velocity. If we will check your Vx and your Vy in different areas after different position, so here, kapag papunta na siya sa pinaka-peak, you still have the constant of 86.6 feet per second. Hindi siya nagbabago. So activity 2.2.1. So what will be the position of the horizontal? What about the position 2, 3, 4, and 5? Your 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do we have the same?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So what do you notice the value of Vx? What will be the value of the Vx? It is magkakapareho yung value niya even though they have different position. Okay, let's compare this in your vertical component of the velocity changes at every given position. This means that it accelerates uniformly at a rate of 32 feet per second squared in this direction. At position 1, if the initial velocity is 100 feet per second, the angle is 30 degrees and time of flight is 0.5 second. Then, what is the vertical component at this position? Mano, can you give me the Vy of different position? Give me the different Vy of the position. So, for position 1, we have ilan? Masursurutan dak? Or napartak? Hello, hello. Buffering ba? Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
Okay? Okay ba? Okay, for position 1, what will be your Vy? So we have initial position times 0.5 seconds. You have 34. So if the time is 0.5 seconds, nag-i-increase. Right.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
your Vy here is 34 feet per second. So for position 2, so if your position 2, if your time is 1, bakit 1? Since yung unang position is 0.5, 0.5 plus 0.5 second, that will be
1.
1 second. So what will be your Vy? If we have V sine theta minus GT. So V is 100 feet per second sine 30 minus 32 feet per second squared times 1. 1 second. Ilan? 100
Ma'am,
sine theta is 50 feet. Ilan? Ilan? Paano amin nun? 50 plus 32? 80?
82, ma'am.
Ay, minus yan. Wrong, sorry. 50 minus 32 ko na kuma.
Ma'am, 18.
18 feet per second. So, anong nangyayari kay Vy? Is it increasing or decreasing? Yung 34 naging 18 feet per second. Habang tumatagal, yung velocity niya bumabagal. So, another. So, if your position 3, so sa position 2, that is 1 plus 0.5, you have, your time now is 1.5 second. So, we have 100 feet per second sine 30 minus 32 feet per second squared times 1.5 second. Manungay, what will be your velocity for position 3 for vertical? So we have 50. We have your 50 feet per second minus 32 times 1.5. Ano?
48, ma'am.
48.
8, ma'am.
50 minus 48,
2, ma'am.
2 feet per second. O, tapusin natin para makita ninyo. Na-screenshot ba? Hindi. Or later na lang? Later na lang. Okay, position 4. Since the time is 1.5, magiging 2 seconds. Since 1.5 plus 0.5 is equal to 2. 2 seconds. So, 50, direct na tayo. Minus 32 times 2. You have 64 feet per. Maalala nyo ba?
Yes.
Nakukuha na.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
50 minus 64, you have negative
Negative 14 feet per second.
negative 14 feet per second. Since it is not possible, magiging positive 14 feet per second. So, from 2, biglang tignan natin, dito sa pinakamataas, dun sa peak niya, kimapsot or bumagal yung takbo nung binato mo. And then, kapag pababa na siya, mas mabilis na. And then, your position 5. So, what will be your time? That is 2.5 seconds. So, 50 feet per second minus 32 times 2.5. Mano, you have
Ma'am, negative 30.
32 times 2.5. Yung time lang. Ay,
Ma'am,
nandun ka na
80.
sa, okay.
Ma'am, 80.
50 minus 80, you have negative
Negative 30.
30 feet per second, or you have 30 feet per second. So, mas bumilis siya ba? That is why, i-SS na ba? Or i-kwan ko muna?
Ang
Oh, screenshot. Next. Next. Okay, so let's go back here in your module. So, magkakaiba ang angle kapag different position. If it is under vertical component. While for your horizontal component, magkakapareho. Bakit magkakapareho? Kasi wala siyang time. If you will check your formula, walang time, right? Sa vertical, meron siyang time. So, habang patagal ng patagal, there will be change in the velocity. Oh, ito, in this area, this is your position if in your trajectory. So, number 5, the horizontal and vertical components of the velocity are independent of each other. This means that the horizontal motion does not affect the vertical motion and vice versa. So, this is the example of your two balls released from the same height with the heat simultaneously. So if we have two stones and we put it on the edge, push one stone horizontally while the other is dropped, what will happen? What will be your possible guess that will happen in your stone? Anong mangyayari? Dediretso ba yung stone pababa? No, kung majubulintik, in pinitik mo o da Jason na rabaw tila misaan. Anong mangyayari? Magka-curve ba siya or direct lang?
Direct.
Direct. Kapag yung push mo, parang konti lang na naglaeng. Ngam no napigpig sa iti push mo, what will happen? Magka-curve ba yung pagkatinag na?
Yes, ma'am.
Pag-curve, di ba? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, that is your projectile motion for this comic strip. So, example for 3.1. You can check on this. Natakal naman na lahat. Ma'am, apay ngay jikot to ini. velocity for 1sx. Let's check this one. For initial velocity that is 0, walang problema. If 1 second sa horizontal motion, walang magbabago kasi wala siyang time. Dito sa vertical motion ang magbabago since meron siyang time. If we will compare here, after 1 second, that is 18, while your 0 second, that is 50. Yung parang kanina lang. So, if magbabago yung vertical, syempre, magbabago din yung total or your velocity all in a certain position. So here, horizontal component, anong mangyayari? The time to reach the top is 1.5625 seconds. This will discuss in number 10. Kapag nasa top position ka, magiging sa horizontal, hindi, sa vertical mo, bumagal ba or, bumasit ba, isuna, or ngumato? Gumato ba? Kapag na-reach na niya yung top position, here, ang mangyayari is time na para bumaba yung object. So, the time along the vertical to the top is equal to your time along the horizontal to the midpoint. So, bagong formula. So, how will you get the time going up? So, if the given is Vy is 0 and your initial vertical motion is 50 feet per second, this will be your equation. Ito na. T up is equal to Vy minus initial vertical component over G. So, 0 minus 50 feet per second over negative 32 feet per second squared. So, T up is 1.5625. So, you just need to combine your time upward and time downward. Nakukuha ba? Madali lang to. Padakay pay. Nakukuha ba? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. So, if the total time is 3, i-divide mo lang siya ng 2. Parang ganun lang yun. So, solve for the total time of the flight. Pag-plasm lang ni time going up and time going down. So, magiging 3.125 seconds. While for the maximum height, by the way, Matalastas, kindly write all your formula in a paper para hindi kayo mawala. Nga ukag ti module. Okay? So, for the maximum height, how will you get this one? To solve the maximum height, we consider the vertical motion and apply kinematic equations. Make sure you have your initial velocity as well as your vertical component, yung total na to. Why is it the gravity is negative 32 feet per second squared? Bakit negative? Kasi, papunta saan yung arrow? Hello? Bakit negative siya? Kasi papunta kay
Top position.
okay, top position. Kapag pataas, 'di ba? Kapag yung rocket nuag pa nga to, narigat nga, bumato kasi ipupul iso na iti gravity. Pero kapag babagsak, madali lang since meron si gravity. That is why negative si gravity nyo dito since papunta siya sa taas top position. So kindly write it down. 2gs equal to initial velocity squared minus your kinematics now is here. Sy, we are referring to your height. That is your velocity for vertical component. This is 0. And your initial velocity for vertical component, 50 feet per second squared. Ay, 50 feet, i-square natin over 2g. Ano yung 2g? Negative 32 times 2. So, your total maximum height is 39.06 feet. How will you solve for the range? To solve the maximum horizontal distance or the range, we consider the following horizontal motion. So you have initial horizontal position, your mid-range, and your final horizontal position. So kung i-drawing natin yung arrow, ayaw ma-drawing, kapag ganito yung projectile, your mid-range is yung pinaka-top na niya. Okay? Nandito naman na lahat. So, you can check on this one. You can use your calculator. Madali lang siya. So, how will you get your initial position to the final position? Check for the total time of flight. And then, what will happen? You have, or you need to multiply your average horizontal velocity and time of flight. Yung time of flight natin is 3.1125 seconds. And then, your velocity is 86.6 feet per second. So, your range now is 170.63 feet. Can you now do your activity 3.1 in your paper? Ginagawa na ba? Hello, hello? Naririnig ako.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Kaya na bakala dito kasi meron na tong mga to. Kitaan nyo lang, pag suktan nyo lang datan ni, range na. Malan yun to datan. The same with the time. Dali lang yan. Okay, any questions regarding your topic for week 1? Medyo mahirap, I know, but if you have any questions, please raise na so that we can clear things up. May question ba? Kung wala ng question, mag-photo ops na tayo. Sure kayo na naintindihan na? Hello? Hello? Naintindihan ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure? Sure ba? Naintindihan? Okay, ayaw magsalita eh. So, let's have your photo ops. Kindly open your camera. O, magsuklay-suklay.